Right, this is, I think, one of the best blues solos you could ever learn. It's an absolute kind of masterclass from Freddie King on how to put together a solo using like literally probably 4 or 5 notes. I mean, it's just ridiculous how many phrases he gets out of just a few notes. This, for example, there's a bend in it. I haven't counted, but that's in there a lot. You have to be really good at string bending for this solo, or if you're not, it'd be a great one to practice. Anyway, I'll get straight into it. I've written it all out. I'm going to sort of do it a phrase at a time. Okay, so we're in the key of C minor, so just think, mostly you're probably going to be in the C, standard kind of C minor, C blues position, but it does move outside a little bit into this kind of area, as well as the usual. So the way it comes in is with a little phrase that's not really, I suppose it's not really part of the main solo, it's just a little sort of introduction to the solo. But it's a really nice one. What it does is plays the standard bluesy bend that everyone always plays, which is 3rd finger, 3rd string at the 10th fret. Bend it to sound like a 12. Then play the 10, pull off to an 8. And then the 4th string, put both fingers on, 1st and 3rd fingers like this, 8 and 10. Play the 10 and do a trill, which is very fast, pull off and hammer on. Sometimes trills can be hammer-ons followed by pull-offs over and over again. This one starts with a pull-off, so it's this. It's that very fast like this. It's very fast and the notes kind of die away as you're playing it. So that whole phrase slowly is. And then it comes into the main solo, which starts with a standard kind of bluesy lick. Most of the licks and phrases in this are very, very standard, but the collection of them all together in this is just amazing, and the phrasing and the timing and everything is just absolutely perfect, I think. So we start with 1st finger on the 8 on the 2nd string, play that note, roll your finger down to play the 8 on the 1st string, which is the C, the root note, and then with your 3rd finger you need to slide into the C here, which is 13 on the 2nd string, like this. And from there we go to 1st finger on the 11 on the 1st string. Now this bend appears a lot, so the 13, 1st string, 3rd finger, and play that bend so that you're making the 13 sound like a 15. And then you do that again, but this time you let it come down to the 13 again, which is a release, and pull off to an 11 like this. So that 2nd finger has to kind of help with the bend, but as it comes down, get out of the way so you can do the pull off. So that whole phrase is. Now, even if you just stop the video there and learn that one phrase, that's going to be incredibly useful for blues playing. But yeah, carry on if you can. Okay, the next one, we're in the same position, 11th position. Play the 13 on the 2nd string, play the 11 on the 1st string, and then the 13 on the 1st string. And then play 13 again, but bend it up to the 15. Then play 13, then 11. And then the bend from the 13 to the 15 twice. Picking both. So that was. Now, because there's so many phrases using these same couple of notes, especially that bend, this could be confusing, this lesson. So if you get in touch with me, email me, and I can send you the tab for this as well. Okay, so from the beginning we've got this, slowly. From there we play first string 13, 11, and then play the 13 again, bend it up to a 15 like we have been doing, let it down to the 13, pull off to an 11, just like we did a minute ago. And then play 13 on the second string, which is the root note, the C, and 11 on the first. So that phrase was. And the next one, very similar, start on the 13 on the second string, and then first string play 11, 13, 11, and just bend that note, that last note up slightly, like this. And then the next phrase, third finger, first string, 13, you probably can guess what's going to happen. We're going to bend it to sound like a 15 and do that twice. And then play same string, first string, 13, 11, and then the same bend again. Then a very quick hammer on from 11 to 13. And then just play 11 and 13 normally. And it's the same bend again, slight difference this time. We do a pre-bend, so you push it up without playing it, play it, let it down, and then play the 11 and do the quick hammer on again to 13. That's really nice, that. So that was. That little phrase there is a good example of why I think this is so good. It's just the same notes being played over and over again, but just in slightly different ways. Like putting the pre-bend in there is just such a cool little thing to do. It just really makes it sound like the guitar's talking or crying. It's just brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to play from the beginning slowly. And then after that we stay in the same position, play the 11, then the 13, and then you probably guessed it, we're going to play the 13 again and bend up to 15, but this time it's a slower one. Once it's there, pick it again, let it down, and pick the 13 again, put a bit of vibrato on it. So that was. And the vibrato gives it a bit of intensity, and there's a lot of intensity in the way he's playing this. And then next part, same bend again, but this time with a release. So it's 13, bend to 15, let it down to 13. And the 11 on the first string, slight bend like we did before, but then play a 13 afterwards on the second string. And from there we go back to the 11 on the first string, play the 13 on the first string, bend up to 15 again, play 11 on the first string, 13 on the second string, and then a little variation here, instead of bending the 13 to a 15, it bends the 11 to a 13, which is quite hard with your first finger. That's easier fast, so doing it slowly like that's quite difficult. I'll just play that phrase up to speed. A little bit easier, still quite difficult. I don't know that he's using his first finger, I think he probably is, but you could move back with your third. And then the next phrase starts with the same old bend again, 13 on the first string, bend it to a 15. And then play same string, 13, 11, 13. And then your finger rolls across to play the root note, the 13 on the second string. First string, 11, and then the same bend, 13 to 15. and then play 11 again, slight bend like we did before, and then second string 13, 11, 13, 11 and slide down. So that whole phrase I just played was this. And then he briefly comes down back to the sort of the more kind of standard C blues position. Or, I mean, the other one's quite a standard one actually here, but this is the one that you probably are more familiar with. It plays an 11, probably third finger, bends it up to 13, a bit of vibrato, and then does the same thing back here with the 13, bends up to 15 and lets it down a little bit. And you go back down to the 11 again, bend it to 13 again. So that was. And then comes down the scale in this position, play second string 11, 8, third string 10 but bend it to a 12, then play 10, 8, fourth string 10, 8, and then very faintly fifth string 10, 8 but with a little trill. It's very faint, it sort of dies out really, that part. I'll just play that phrase slowly. Getting near the end now, so we go to the same position, the second string 8, play that note, then play an 11, bend it up to 13. So that's bending this note to sound like the C, which is the root note. And then play the C here, first string 8th fret. It's a very common kind of bluesy thing to do that. Play it there as a bend and then here normally. So it's play the same bend again, and then second string 11, 8, third string 10, 8, play the 10 again but bend it to sound like a 12 and do that twice, and then 10, 8, 10, same string, fourth string 10, third string 8, hammer onto a 10. And then following straight on from that, we play an 8 on the third string again, but bend downwards very slightly. Just makes it sound bluesy. And then fourth string again, 10, pull off to 8, play the 10 again. And then this part, a little bit different to the rest of the solo. Flatten your finger over the second and third strings. Doesn't matter if it touches the first. Play those two and pull them downwards a little bit. And then play the fourth string 10, 8. And that whole phrase is a bit more rhythmic. It's got a bit of a swing to it, a bit more rhythmic than the rest of the solo. So most of the solo is kind of a wailing sort of crying out guitar solo, but this last part is a bit more swung and it's a bit more kind of like makes you tap your foot more, just this last phrase. Okay, I'll just play the whole phrase quite slowly. And that's the last phrase in the solo. He starts singing again then, and there's a little kind of extra sort of like an afterthought, which is something like, I haven't written that bit down, but that's just something that is after he sings a bit. There's a little, it's like the guitar saying, I'm still here, and he just does a little extra bit. Something like that. Okay, so I'll demonstrate the whole thing, but really slowly. So I'm going to play the whole solo slowly. It won't make a lot of sense without backing, and it'll it'll be slow. So, but just so you can see how all the notes kind of are strung together, and have a look at the demo at the beginning of the video to see how this is all played in time and with some chords backing. Okay, so I didn't count how many of those there are. I'm going to listen back to this and count them, and then I'll put that somewhere here. How many times he did that bend in that solo. And it just shows that you don't have to do loads of fancy stuff. You don't have to play hundreds of different notes, in blues anyway. So, I mean, in other styles as well, I suppose, but especially blues, you can do an amazing solo just with a few notes. And it's all about the phrasing and making some of the notes and phrases a little bit unexpected. So things like the bend on the 11 with the first finger, that was kind of unexpected, not because it was with first finger, but just that note. You've heard this so many times in the solo, and then suddenly there's one which sounds like that. It's not expected, and that's the kind of stuff that sounds really, really good with this, I think. Anyway, brilliant solo. If you have any questions on any of that, then please put them in the comments. And if you'd like the tab, then let me know, and that can be arranged. And please click like if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, thanks.